Well, thank you all for coming. All of you who are here, we're so glad you're here for so many reasons. It is my pleasure to introduce to you tonight Scott Van Osdol. Austin photographer Scott Van Osdol shoots what he loves, documentary style commercially. He keeps it simple, clear, and compelling. He subscribes to the notion, give it away, it comes back. Shooting pro bono for projects like Art from the Streets and the Big Bend Rodeo. For 10 years, he led the Hill Country Ride for AIDS marketing team, working with Austin's best creatives to raise more than $10 million, with campaigns that appeared multiple times in ComArts, Print, and How International Design Annual. Welcome, Scott. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so glad you could be here. Hi, Susan. She's waving. She's muted. I'm so happy you could join me. Y'all should have seen our practice runs. They were delightful. Linda is delightful, ever delightful.
Yes.
So I'm so glad that you invited me to do this, and thank all of you for attending.
Really quick, I'm going to stop my share in a second and let Scott take over. I'm also going to mute all of you while he's talking, but if you'd like to ask a question or you can unmute yourself, you can also send a message to the chat that Linda or I will take a look at. And so I'm going to stop sharing, and then in a second, we're going to get all of you muted. Hold on here. And I got to turn Scott back on. Actually, Scott, you should turn yourself back on, and Linda, because I can't. There we go.
Cool.
And I'm going to mute myself and let you guys take over.
All right.
Go, Scott.
So we actually have, I see more people have shown up, and I just want to say thank you for joining us. I'm really looking forward to talking with Linda and all of you later on. We actually have this broken up into several sections where I'm going to talk about work, but we've left a lot of time for question and answer, and I would like to hear your experience about doing pro bono work and how that's affected your career, how it's helped you build your career. So as we go through all this, just keep that in mind. Think about how you would like to talk to us about your experience with pro bono.
We've decided that he's going to speak about several projects, and all the questions and answers will come at the end. So do know that you'll have time to ask about anything he's talking about now at the end.
All right. So Linda and I thought that we would begin. You're all looking at a slideshow here on my website, vanosdol.com.
We are not looking at it right now. You're not sharing.
Oh, okay. So it's back to me to share that screen and Google Chrome and share computer sound and share. Thank you, George. So good to have a professional,
great tech
boy genius here to help us on this. All right. So tell me, George, is the screen me and Linda sitting over this rotating slideshow? So Linda, if you have questions for me, roll them out, or I will just launch into this. Yeah, I can see you. So let me just say that I'm a commercial photographer based in Austin, Texas. I've been forgetting to turn off my main light, which hopefully will stop the flickering in a second. I do a lot of stuff, from industrial work to rodeo to West Texas. I shoot for clients like Yeti. All of it bringing the documentary style to the table, giving my clients photos with that lived-in look. I like keeping it real. So all that is to say that I have done a whole lot of pro bono work in my career. Since 2004, I've been working with the Hill Country Ride for AIDS, which is one of the largest cycling fundraisers. It's not a race, it's a ride. Fundraisers for people living with HIV and AIDS. And so what you're going to see here is our photos from 2018. And there are 500 or 600 bike riders, and there are another 300 or 400 volunteers who make the ride the community of kindness that it is. And Linda, can you see my my little arrow tracking?
Yep.
I can point
You were
stuff
circling
out.
around
How
the
cool is that?
the yodelers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so this group is actually hosting a pit stop at the tallest hill on the entire 65-mile ride. And here we have the Lonely Goat Herd. And all that is a camp sort of reference to the sound of music. And so while we approached the highest point, the Alps as it was, were in central Texas, we heard broadcast, doe, a deer, a female deer. So 763 riders and volunteers raised more than $675,000 in the 2018 Hill Country Ride for AIDS. The Lonely Goat Herds led us in song, broadcasting Julie Andrews' voice from the highest hill in the 65-mile ride. And you know, I think I just said all that, so I'm going to avoid reading these captions. So.
And who are the people who are riders? How did you get the riders engaged?
You know, we've been building this community for a long time. Like I said, I've been working with it since 2004 as volunteer marketing director. And in that capacity, I reached out to the best and brightest in Austin advertising and said, boy, have we got a great campaign for you to apply your superhuman creative skills to. And they jumped on board. As you'll see in the pictures to come. So one of my notes here, it's one of my favorite events to photograph. It's one of the few times I don't have to tell people to smile, because 10 miles down the road, the endorphins kick in and they're all grinning like fools. So here we have the goat herds help pushing people up the hills.
Wow, there's hills.
Just how steep that hill is. It's pretty serious. All right. So, like I said, since 2004, this has been one of the principal things that I've worked on. I spent 16 years on the board of the Austin Advertising Federation, a couple times as president. Several years as Vice President Public Service. And in that capacity, I brought the Hill Country Ride for AIDS on as our premier pro bono public service client. And again, we helped them raise more than $10 million over that period. So Linda, did you have a question about this photograph? That's
well, I do. I like, what is happening? Where's the water coming from and what's going on? Like, who?
Yeah,
can't ride a bike in the water. I'm not a biker person, so
yeah, this is what's called a low water crossing, and they flood periodically, and they're usually wet. And so you've got a creek running on both sides of this photograph. But since it's always wet, there's a whole lot of algae growing, and it's slick. So instead of asking the bike riders who are in shoes with cleats to carry their bikes across or to ride their bikes across where they would slip and fall on their ass, we have for the ride a guy in a hard hat. So
he carries every bicycle?
Everybody's bike across, yes.
One at a time.
Well,
yeah, that's holy man.
That's how the mustached guys do it, you know.
And you have a nun, I see. My mind.
Yes, to go, yes, with its Sound of Music theme. So you've got the singing nuns and the lonely goat herds. So as part of this, team captains of two of the bigger cruise teams promised they'd shave their beards and heads if the teams raised more than $50,000. They got buzzed. So here you have an after the ride event where Paul is getting his haircut and not all of his team members approve. Here this gentleman got shaved. There's Paul again with a new haircut.
Good.
Actually, I think he's looking great. So
Who's this? Hold on. What do we have here?
it's a colorful ride. This is one of the long-term riders getting ready to go to the starting line. And people wear costumes. It's just part of the culture. And Bicycle Sport Shop is a sponsor. And so they bring out their bike mechanics to help all of those who break down on the road. One of the teams here sponsoring a pit stop is called the Wheelie Nelsons. And they all wore Willie Nelson braids. So again, there's a whole lot of this camp culture stuff going on. It's really a fun ride.
Yeah, too bad nobody's having any fun. Oh my gosh.
This woman is an old friend. She is an art buyer, producer at GSD&M. And Jen and her son, Otto, that's him riding in the little trailer, have been riding the Hill Country Ride for AIDS for a long time. And then you have a whole bunch of buff dudes and very interesting people in the ride. So
does everyone get pushed up the hill?
No, actually it's a point of pride. The guy you saw earlier where you said, oh, that is a steep hill. No, he rode that on his own. I ride it on my own. So one of the components of the ride is we honor the last rider in, because that rider had to work harder than all the rest of us. And Lawrence, God bless him, needed help to get off his bike as he became the last rider in. And what else can I show you about this here? Driftwood, Texas plays host to this ride. And the Driftwood Police Department is good enough to supply us people for security. And here you see the rainbow on the back of the Driftwood police officer. You gotta love that. So here are several examples of Hill Country Ride posters, collateral that has been produced by advertising agencies, pro bono. These are printed by a big printer in Austin, pro bono. The paper is donated to by Clampett Paper. So this is one of my favorites, easy on the eyes, hell on the thighs. And
wow.
Yeah, here I give credit to them. But like I said earlier, over the years, it's been a privilege to work with the best and brightest in Austin advertising. Elements of these campaigns have appeared in communication arts, print, and how international design, all while raising more than $10 million to help our friends and neighbors. And at the end of this, I hope you'll join us by making a donation. The help desk is easy to find at hillcountryride.org. And here we have the ride director carrying a director from AIDS Services of Austin to the help desk early in the morning.
And how long is the ride? How many miles?
You can ride 20, you can ride 40, you can ride 65. They break it down. So whatever your fitness level.
Wow.
All right. So one of the reasons that we kicked off with this is just to talk about the kind of pro bono work that I do. And not only is it done to build the portfolio, it's done to build a network of a professional network of friends at agencies that I've worked with, and doing this work has benefited them with professional recognition and communication arts, etc. And it also is a great karma builder because we're helping people who are living with HIV and AIDS. All of that is to say that sooner or later, it leads to paying jobs. All those networks, all those connections, all that good karma that I've built up over the years. Here, for example, is a job done for an agency called, oh, that's terrible. It'll come to me in a second. This was done for the Texas Health and Human Resources State Department. One of their projects is Navigate Life Texas, which is a website designed for and by families living with children with disabilities. And one of the things that I learned in the lead up to shooting this is there's a very important language distinction when working with this community. No one wants to hear you say disabled children. They are instead children with disabilities. The primary point is they are children, like children everywhere. They just have special abilities or disabilities. And so this was a shoot we did last summer, and we photographed 7 exceptional families of children with disabilities. And they agreed to tell their story on the Navigate Life website. Like I said, it's a community of caring and sharing with links and to services and real stories written with the help of the families themselves.
And
So
it's also true that not many of them had been in front of a camera before.
that is absolutely true. And one thing that we discovered is that many of the fathers were a little shy about getting on camera, but once we talked them into it, they were there, pedal to, I mean, just beaming with pride and all the love that they felt for their children. This gentleman jumped right in, and he was having so much fun with his son. And really the most important thing about this whole series of photographs for me is just showing that love and affection that takes place between the father and his daughter, and mother is over here with a helping hand on the cane. So the disabilities range from autism to cerebral palsy. So some of the children were very affected, some less so. And like I said, once the dads got on board, they showed boundless affection, tenderness, and pride. I mean,
are these girls twins?
These girls are, yes, are twins. And I honestly couldn't tell which child was disabled. I think it was something on the autism spectrum. But my wife, Lexanne, who was there doing makeup, just said that she thought they both were. So I'm not sure what the story is. But they were remarkable kids.
Oh, wow. Oh, they're so little. Look at that hand.
Yeah.
Like a mountain.
I know.
Fantastic.
Bigger than her head.
Right?
Yeah. Dad's hands. And so some of the families had severely disabled children, but you can see that didn't affect their relationship at all. They loved their son, their brother, just as much. Wow. So that was the principal takeaway for me, was just how much love and affection was shared among these families. And not having grown up in a family with disabilities, well, actually, some nephews on the autism spectrum, but mostly that's because they came from such bright family stock that, anyway. So Mighty Citizen,
That's a great, they're all great. I love this one. I just love it.
Yeah.
So fabulous.
Yeah. So again, all that is to say that the creative director from Mighty Citizen had seen my work on my website, loved the work that I did for Hill Country Ride for AIDS, and asked me to help with this project, which had a decent budget. I was able to hire a crew. because of the work that he had seen in the past. So give it away, it comes back. So if we've been doing this for, I've got 6:58 on my clock, and we should probably move to the next project. Yeah?
I'd say yes.
Yeah. All right. So this is a big one. This, every other day, is a bootstrapping a fundraiser for a cowboy living with end-stage renal disease. And when I say it's the Rhodey Lewis story, Rhodey is a working cowboy. You see him right here. This photograph, it was taken while I was shooting pro bono for the Big Bend Ranch Rodeo. One of the things about ranch rodeos that distinguish them from professional rodeos is you have to show a paycheck stub from a working ranch in order to ride in a ranch rodeo.
That's cool. You have to be the real deal.
Yeah, you have to be the real deal. And the teams are from real ranches, working ranches around Texas and New Mexico. So what you're doing, what you're seeing at a ranch rodeo is actually the skills that cowboys use in their day jobs. And this is all real. I mean, as mythic as this image looks, this guy's getting ready to go out and work with cattle because that's what his job is. So I shot this before the rodeo. To me, it was such a great photo. I decided to use this as my first spread in the workbook, Linda Levy's publication.
I work there.
Well, you do a great
But
job.
I
Thank you.
love the karma here because, you know, tell the story of what happened. Because I asked you,
Within 2 months.
Rhodey, his story.
Yeah, well, within 2 months, I had gotten hired to shoot a national campaign from the major brand Justin Brands, which is Justin Boots and Nakona Boots and a number of other ones. So just running this in the workbook actually paid big dividends. Doing this pro bono work paid big dividends. So to continue Rhodey's story, like I said, bootstrapping a kidney dialysis fundraiser. While I was getting a model release so I could place that picture in the workbook, his wife told me that Rhodey lives with end-stage renal disease. I had no idea. She said that he gets up every other day at 2:20 in the morning and drives 180 miles round trip for kidney dialysis. This keeps him alive. His wife and family decided they wanted to build a home dialysis room. Home dialysis is healthier and will allow Rhodey to live longer, long enough to raise his daughters and see his grandchildren. But ranch hands don't make much money. So I said, let's do a fundraiser. There's one of Rhodey's nieces out on their property. So with zero budget and volunteer labor, we put together a small, scrappy fundraising campaign featuring a short film from the brilliant filmmakers at the Noble Lab. And there's a little snippet of this we're going to want to play in a bit. We created a GoFundMe and social pages. And GSDNM creative director Susan Rosenzweig, who has joined us here tonight, and I'm going to introduce her later. Social media director Caitlin Pleasance, who also worked at GSDNM at the time, and my photo assistant executed the promotion campaign, all pro bono. And I needed them. I needed their help because my Twitter handle, for example, is at Scott Don't Tweet. So I'm kind of agnostic about social media. And my feeling about Twitter is just life is too short to tweet. I mean, I've got things to do, pictures to take, Photoshop, so anyway.
But you knew what team to assemble.
Yes, I did. I brought in the kids, and Susan led them and produced an amazing campaign. The campaign launched December 13th. 2016 at 7 a.m. with Facebook posts to 548 people. It went viral on GoFundMe. By 5:18 that evening, we met our $20,000 goal. Within a week, our Facebook reach hit over 38,000, and we raised more than $80,000 in cash donations, plus another $20,000 in in-kind donations and materials. Rhodey's family didn't just build a small clinic for him to do daily home dialysis, they built a house. And that's a life changer for all of them. Here's Rhodey's daughter and his brother-in-law banging nails on the house. The brother-in-law is a farrier, that is a guy who does horseshoes, so he's good with a hammer. He's teaching the daughter how to build a house. Since then, the story has been featured in Outside Online, Cavander's Western Wear Beyond the Clothes campaign, workbook, and Border States Electric, which donated materials and services. A year later, donations continue to roll in. Rhodey's family moved in over Thanksgiving, so that would have been Thanksgiving 2017. And I think it's important to mention that we showed the people who donated the $80,000 in cash were mostly from a small community, ranching community out in West Texas. And it was important for us to speak to them in their own language and to affirm their culture in heroic terms. This was just a big barn raising. They knew about barn raising, and the fact that it took place over social media didn't seem to slow them down at all, because so many people out in West Texas use Facebook that was the best media for us to talk to those people. So here are some of the photographs that were used in the social media campaign. Rhodey at work at dawn. And there he is in the house that they built. Handsome dog, isn't he?
And I would so encourage anyone who has not seen the film to go see it's at your website, right?
Yeah, it is.
Watch the film. I just want to mention, when the first time I met you, you told me the story of this project, which was so moving to hear about. Then that night, I remember going to look at the pictures, and then it was like, oh gosh, it never left me, that sense of, oh my God, the most amazing pictures and the most amazing story.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable story, how the community rose to support one of their own. This is one of my favorite shots. I love the way that the mountain behind Rhodey mimics the cowboy hat shape. And his daughter's having a new home to play with the horses in. And you saw earlier, I think, a shot of Mia herding cattle. This is her with Rhodey's boot. Reassuring touch. Here's an example of the Twitter account, how we use some of those elements, the GoFundMe page, and that actually had a live link to the video. And of course, Instagram. So let's scroll back up here real quick and just take a quick look at some of this film and make sure that the sound is coming through.
Oh my God.
I guess I've been riding horses since I was old enough to get across one, and before I could walk, probably. I've always lived on a ranch, so it's always been right out the back door, I guess.
So that's a basic setup. What we're going to go to
that
now
are having
is
on the in the
Rhodey's wife
Pepper.
talking about his job. Linda asked her,
when
very-
things got really hard, when we were having to travel further for our treatments and we needed a couple $1,000s to fix our car. We weren't able to come up with it, and I did go apply at the Health and Human Services office for just some temporary assistance. And we were denied because my husband works full-time. I was given the recommendation by the lady that works there that we quit his job and we'd make so much more money. And I told her that that wasn't what it was about. We didn't do it to make money.
I thought that gave me goosebumps the first time I saw this film. Just unbelievable and she's so gracious, lovely.
and so articulate and so intelligent, and yeah, these people are remarkable, and it was really great just to be able to work with them. And George, can you come online?
I bet I can. What can I do for you, sir?
Can you bring Susan Rosenzweig in
Can.
to chat with us?
I think we might need to, she should be all ready. Our host, if she would like to show
Raise
anything.
your hand, Susan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi.
Hi,
Susan.
welcome.
Can we get Susan's picture up here? Is that possible?
She needs to put it up there. She needs to turn the camera on, which I think she has.
Oh.
My camera is on.
I can
Yeah,
see.
it just depends on what your view is. You may see her or not.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Well, Susan, I can't see you yet. Let me make a bigger screen.
I can see you.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Hi.
So I wanted to recognize Susan because she very much subscribes to this notion of using your creative superpowers for the good, and give it away, it comes back. Susan recently produced an award-winning documentary called Baby Hers, and it received from the Big Apple Film Festival Best Documentary Award. So yeah, it's
Bravo.
really a compelling little film. Susan, why don't you tell us briefly what it's about?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for including me tonight. I just want to say, first of all, the Every Other Day campaign was just probably one of the easiest projects I've ever worked on. It kind of sold itself. It was beautiful and it was a compelling story. And I hate taking any credit because I don't feel like, I mean, I know we did work. We did a lot of work, but it felt effortless. So
Yeah, it felt like fun.
well, it was fun. It was important, and it was very easy. I mean, and I think I remember saying we had a whole calendar built out for like several months of fundraising, and we raised all the money that day. And we were like, oh, okay, I got to rethink this. So it's great when that happens.
Yeah.
And it was great to work with Scott on that. And we had known each other for a while before then, but then got to work on that together. And then when I started on this project, which is my baby, my labor of love, I was thrilled that Scott was willing and able to help me with this as well in so many ways. I mean, I think you have more credits on your title for this film than I do, actually.
Well, but you have the ones that count.
Well,
Director, producer.
they're all important. I the writer, producer, director, a little bit of camera work as well for Baby Hers, which is a film, my first documentary film. I'm a creative director. I should introduce myself first. I'm a creative director. Chicago is my first stop out of college. I'm a big Chicago fan. I moved to New York after a few years in Chicago, started my career at Ogilvy and Mather in New York, but I never fell out of love with Chicago. I never fell in love with New York the way I fell in love with Chicago. I don't miss the winters, but I do love Chicago. And I moved to Austin about 5 years ago after 17 years in New York. And I've always been in advertising. I'm a writer, creative director, but I am also a really passionate animal advocate, and have learned a lot in the last 6 years about factory farming and what happens to animals. And I've been a vegetarian since I was 9 and thought I knew everything there was to know about what was happening in that kind of world. I was vegetarian because I loved animals and didn't want to hurt them. And about 6 years ago, I learned what was really going on in our food system with factory farming, and I was outraged, and I took to the medium that I knew best, which was writing. And I used to write for Huffington Post, just sort of my side hustle, doing personal essay writing. And what I learned was people don't tend to read about things they don't already believe in. And if you want to, I learned a little bit about narrative persuasion and the importance of film in really changing hearts and minds. And as an advertising person, I know that the power of film, even 30 or 60 seconds, can really get people hooked emotionally. So I took to that medium. I never have produced a film on my own. I've always had an amazing group of people to work with. But in this case, this was something I really wanted to do. So I was fortunate enough to have people like Scott, who I know in the industry, who got on board and believed in the message and the project and wanted to be a part of it. And we put together this 15-minute short documentary about motherhood and factory farming, which is an odd combination. But I don't know who's working the screen, but if you want to show the trailer is
Yeah. Just before I show the trailer, I want to say that I did not know about dairy industry practice of removing the calf from its mother before it even feeds, as soon as it's born, taking it away. And it's so traumatic for both the mother and calf. So once I began to learn about that story, I definitely wanted to come on and help tell it. When you see this 1-minute trailer, there, I believe the second or third person you see is an older gentleman, round-faced farmer in a ball cap. And he actually runs a family farm, and he doesn't do that. So we got him to tell his side of the story, which is how it's possible to raise cattle for dairy cattle humanely. So we got good guys in this film.
It's definitely been something that's made me feel scared at times, because I know anything could happen to her at any point. I think those mom instincts definitely kick in as soon as she's born.
There's things that are done to try to make this system work that I don't enjoy.
I think the whole process is pretty disturbing.
If someone tried to take her, it would be devastating.
It affects them, both baby and the mom.
I couldn't imagine that I participated in it for so long.
I would do anything possible to get her back, to keep her safe. We'd do absolutely anything to keep her safe.
So as you can tell, it's a teaser because, and I'm going to clarify one thing that Scott said in a minute, but I'm well aware of the fact that when you tell somebody, I made a film about the dairy industry and how horrible it is to animals, nobody wants to watch that film. Nobody wants to watch that film. I don't want to watch that film. So, and I wanted to tell a story that people would want to watch it. I love animals. I hate PETA films. I hate, when those commercials come on, showing you all the suffering dogs. It breaks my heart. I don't want to watch that. So I wanted and was very intentional about making a film that told the truth about the dairy industry and factory farming in a way that people could get the facts and not be traumatized by it and make their own decisions. And I think we succeeded, because I would say 9 out of 10 people that watch it tell me, that's it, I gave up dairy. which is like more than I ever could have dreamed. I will say one thing about, just to clarify, I wish what Scott said was entirely true. Jim does it as humanely as possible for most farms. But I would not say that he does it entirely humanely, only because the big giveaway on this is most people don't think about why cows make milk. I grew up thinking they just made milk, which seems asinine now, but most people think that cows just make milk. The truth is, cows make milk for the same reason that humans do. They only make milk when they have a baby. So the only way that we get milk from cows is by impregnating them and then taking their children away at birth. And we do this like millions and millions of times over and over again. And both the mothers, as Scott said, the mothers and the babies are traumatized. And it's heartbreaking. And it's something that the dairy industry has done and the advertising industry has done a very good job of hiding. And I feel, especially being in the advertising industry and having been influenced early in my career by a talk by Jeff Goodby, who came to Ogilvy when I was a neophyte copywriter and talked about the Got Milk campaign and how it came to be. And of course, like everyone else, I think it's a brilliant campaign. I still do. But it has caused a lot of harm, not just to animals, but to all of us that are product of or victims of a product that is really not the healthiest thing to drink, especially because of how the animals are treated. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I don't, Susan, can you see any of the other guests on your screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Well, I saw someone's mouth drop open. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah, it's a very common reaction.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that. And then when you put the dots together, you go, why didn't I think of that? But we don't. And big dairy and big farming has worked very hard that you don't think about that. But all you've got to do is see it once, and you can't unsee it. They take the babies away like the moment that they're born. And they don't even get the colostrum, which, if any of you are mothers, know how important that is for babies to get the first milk, for building immune, and for a lot of the babies don't survive, and the factory farms don't care because they're just a byproduct. So yeah, it's pretty awful. And considering that before I made this film, I watched films like just about health, like Forks Over Knives, that talks about how dairy is not even that great for us. And so you put those two things together and it's like, what have we done? But the main point of my film was to give people options. I didn't want to, didn't want to shame people or tell people they have to give up dairy, but to give them the information and say, hey, if you are going to do dairy, you're much better off supporting small family farmers like Jim, who really go out of their way and treat their animals like part of the family, which I think most people think all dairy farms are that way, and they're not.
So one of our goals was, or one of Susan's goals was, to tell this story, to give people options. And here on the website, babyhersfilm.com, you can see links to some of the alternatives that are available. Is that right, Susan?
Yeah, we've got resources on there so that people can see, you know, like
Non-dairy cheeses.
Yeah, find local resources for where to, because there's a website called localharvest.org that you can find anything you want to shop for, anything from like vegetables to dairy to meat. You can find local farmers wherever you live that you can support. And the more local farmers that are supported, the better off the animals will be and the better off we will, whatever the product you're eating is, it's healthier. But they need supported to be able to continue doing the kind of kinder, more humane farming that they're doing. And then there's a lot of resources on there for, how to give up certain things like dairy. I started an Instagram account called How to Ditch Dairy that I'm sharing lots of dairy alternatives that you would never know exist, or you'd never know the difference. I make all kinds of recipes for friends and family, and they have no idea that there's no dairy in it. We live in a time right now where there's a lot of options. So
yeah, and sometimes it's good to just say no. I actually feel so much better having stopped eating ice cream a month ago.
Right.
You know, I just don't wake up with a sugar hangover. It's delightful. So thank you, Susan. It was great to see the trailer again. And when is that film going to be available? After you get done submitting it to the festival circuit? Is that right?
Yeah, we're still on a festival circuit. We're looking for partners for distribution, and to really my goal with this is to turn it into a PSA. Actually, I'm looking for corporate partners to do a PSA just to get the word out more, because that was my main goal.
Okay. All right. Well, stay tuned to babyhersfilm.com and you'll be able to see it soon.
But if anybody, if somebody wants to watch it and if somebody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to share the link with the password if they want to watch it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Linda, is it time for us to open this up to question and answers? Linda.
So sorry. Please, I wanted to say, please, anyone who has a question for Scott or Susan, put it in the chat and we will start happening with answers.
And while we're waiting, I wanted to say hi to Mary Prussell, who is from the workbook too.
Hi, Mary.
You guys could also unmute yourselves and just yell stuff out, but you may at the same time.
I'd love to have a conversation.
Hi.
Hi, Mary. I'd love to have a conversation. Certainly in a group this talented, the Creative Coalition, certainly people have some experience working with pro bono campaigns. You're more than welcome to talk about those if you like. So while we're getting folks' nerves up.
Where's Alice? Alice.
Hi. Hi.
Any pro bono experiences that you would like to share or ask about?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Scott. Thank you for an awesome presentation.
You're welcome.
Inspiring and beautiful work with many great causes. And I myself am a photographer of about 15, 20 years, and I worked in the nonprofit sector full-time for 15 years as a staff photographer. So I haven't necessarily done the level of pro bono campaigns as you, but I've done some smaller projects in the Chicago area with Refugee One and a small organization called Mindfulness Leaders, and it's a mindfulness training program for Chicago kids in public schools. And I've worked in the nonprofit sector for a long time. And now I'm a freelance photographer, and I would like to be able to do more work like you. and give back and also get paid.
All of a piece, right?
Yeah, it's getting paid that's the part you got to be patient about.
Yeah.
Started working with the Hill Country Ride for AIDS in 2004. There's actually what I was showing you just a minute ago was I wanted to.
Cows, they're so beautiful.
Yes, they are.
You have a secret weapon when you work with cows. Could you share that story that I read about and it made me so happy?
Cow candy. They're like little candy bar size packed rolls of alfalfa and sorghum. And once you feed a cow one of those, they will follow you anywhere.
I love that. Can we do that with people too?
I think it actually happens with people too. But anytime you're working with cows and you feed them cow candy, you want to make sure you've got a bandana in your back pocket so that you can wipe your hands off, because cow drool is industrial strength. So I wanted to quickly show some pictures here from a small family farm in Bastrop, Texas, which is just outside of Austin. Patty Jacobs owns and operates this ranch where she raises grass-fed cattle, and they are humanely slaughtered when the time comes. But the more important part is they spend a very good life working, living together on the ranch when Patty's taking care of them. So this was done, I want to say first done 7 years ago, just as a pro bono project. I mean, I admired Patty. I admired what she does. I wanted to help her build a market for grass-fed beef. And so it's been on the gallery for a while. On Monday morning, I have been hired by an agency out of Raleigh, North Carolina, to drive to Louisiana to shoot a farmer for a National Ag Services client. So it's a decent project. It's has a modest but decent budget on it, but it just gets me out of the house and I get to drive to Louisiana to shoot a farmer at dawn. So I guess I just want to say that, you know, the payoff cycle on shooting pro bono can be really long. But if you're patient and you're in this for the long term, it will pay off.
Trucks. Oh, the trucks, the big boy trucks. What?
Oh, the trucks?
You were like, they're so big. What was that project about? They were, I forget, but I remember loving the pictures.
Actually, yeah, it's there was a Chicago construction company that does really big projects that hired me to.
Is that because you were in Texas, or because they loved your
they
work?
Were building a highway in Texas, and
there.
Yeah.
Hoo-hoo.
Linda likes big trucks.
I don't know. I don't ever see them. It's like, is this real? Like this sort of looks like Oz to me. Oh my God. Is that real?
Maybe an 8-year-old boy, Linda.
You never know.
And Linda thought this was a really amazing photo when she saw it the end of the day. It was, are they doing yoga? And yeah, they're doing stretching exercises all together.
It's fantastic. I've never seen that. I see other humans doing yoga. Wow. And you know, the concept of scale is important in these pictures. It's not the sandbox. It's like a giant sandbox.
Right. Yeah. Those are big, big Tonka toys. All right. So,
you should show the water park photos.
I'm sorry. Say again.
Your I said you should show a couple of the water park photos, the splash stuff.
Yeah. Okay. We started a few minutes late, so I have a few more minutes of your kind attention. Splashway gives back. Where is it? There it is.
Oh, and tell the story. It's a great story.
Yeah, this actually is a commercial shoot that I did for an agency out of Chicago. And a couple weeks after we wrapped shooting, Hurricane Harvey hit the Texas Gulf Coast. And people were fleeing Houston by the millions. All the freeways out of town were packed. This family-owned water park is about an hour and a half outside of Houston on the way to Austin. They opened up their cabins and campgrounds for free to the refugees coming out of Houston. So this is one of the photos I took during that commercial shoot, and it wound up in Communication Arts Photo Annual. So I used it because I knew that people really liked this photo. I used this as the main image in a small social and direct mail campaign to tell the story that Splashway did.
Wow.
Sheltering people. And in that process, I asked people to donate to the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation's rebuildtexas.org, and they raised a good chunk of change, helping communities build. One of the nice things about taking this commercial shoot and spinning off a public interest campaign from it is that I got to work with the rock star photo rep, Heather Elder, as she produced a similar campaign with her staff of photographers, calling on other commercial photographers around the country to donate photography to funds that were raising money to victims of the hurricanes, the earthquakes in California, the wildfires in California. So I got to work with Heather Elder, and she promoted this campaign to her audience as well, which is huge. So it's another good chance, again, an example of doing pro bono work, allows you to build your network, to work with the people that you admire, to create lasting relationships, as well as help people who have whose homes have been flooded. So you give it away, it comes back. So do we have any more questions about all this song and dance, show and tell, dog and pony show that we've done?
Before people move ahead, Susan Rosenwig put the link to her film in the chat if you didn't see it.
Oh.
So if you want to watch it, there's a link and a password to see it. Make sure people know it's there.
Nice. Thank you, Susan.
Yep, absolutely. I'm happy to let anyone see it that wants to.
Thank you.
I promise it's not super disturbing. It's
I don't know. I'm disturbed.
I swear, it's more eye-opening than upsetting. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
But I'm totally with you. It goes like I'm a mother. I've given birth. I've never thought of the fact that a cow, I just never thought about it.
Me neither.
I just didn't.
I would say 90% of people that I talk to, and I didn't either, say the same thing. It's like and then you realize it and you're like, why did I not think that? So yeah, it's a big aha moment for most people.
And my cousin has a dairy farm in Ireland. which
Oh,
I
yeah.
have been on.
Maybe he can see the film. Send him
And I've even milked cows. So, yeah.
Well, if it's a family farm in Ireland, chances are that he doesn't do the kind of.
I know. I'm gonna write to him. I was like, Patrick, this is what I heard that we.
The smaller farms like Jim in our film, who also is a veterinarian, so he was an amazing man who really understands animals and animal sentience and all that. They still take the babies away, most of them, almost all of them, because they have to. But they wait longer. They leave them with the mothers for a couple weeks, and then they raise them together, and so it's different. I mean, but they still take them away because if they want, it's either give them to the babies or give them to us, give it to us.
Jim said he was in the process of building his herd, so he was able to hang on to some percentage of those calves. But again, that can only go so far.
Well,
but the advantage to giving them a little more time with their mother is that they don't have the separation anxiety. Plus, cows are herd animals, so they're perfectly fine hanging out with their boys in a herd as they move on through their life cycle.
Yeah.
It makes me so sad because I'm a big milk drinker and cheese is one of my 4 food groups. I mean, it's just like, oh, it makes.
I will
didn't even think of any of that.
That was, I mean, the reason I wrote the piece in Huffington Post first was because when I first found all this out, I was furious. And cheese had been my main, as a vegetarian for all those years, had been my main source of protein. And I was furious and I didn't want to give it up. And I was like, you know, why are we doing this to animals? It's so cruel. Like, it doesn't have to be this way. But I will tell you, and you won't believe me, but it is true. I don't miss it now, and there are so many great options. I had an amazing vegan pasta today with vegan cheese on it that I would have never known wasn't dairy. So there is a happy ending on the other side, and I no longer feel badly about it. For a long time, I tried to do it, and I started doing baby steps. I mean, it's hard to do things cold turkey, but I will tell you that there are so many amazing alternatives now that I don't miss it at all. And that was my first thing. Like, how could I give up cheese? That's everybody's first thought.
Or
everyone. In fact, I am co-hosting in a couple weeks or beginning of December. There's a great, I know you guys aren't here in Austin, but there's a really great shop here in Austin called Rebel Cheese that just won Best New Restaurant in Austin. They are an entirely vegan cheese shop. They have something like, I want to say 70 different kinds of vegan cheeses. And they do, there they are. They do vegan cheese and wine tastings, and they're hosting them all the time virtually, and they will ship them out to you. I think they supply some restaurants all over the country now for vegan cheese, and it is, some are better than others. It really is up to you, but they make the most incredible grilled cheese sandwiches and Reubens, and there is great hope for us cheese lovers on the other side of dairy. It's all good.
Good.
There's bound to be 1 or 2 of those in Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, Chicago is such a great restaurant city. I mean, I worked in the restaurant business. I worked for Lettuce Entertainment in Chicago.
Oh yeah, that's a big restaurant.
Yeah.
It's a challenging time for restaurants, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know. So you got to support them any way you can. So we're doing these virtual vegan cheese and wine tasting.
George, did you have a question for me, or
we have some questions from the chat actually?
Oh,
moving along from cheese.
Okay, I'm not wasn't looking at the chat bar.
So, there's 2 questions. Teresa has one. She would love to hear about your technique and lighting for some of these.
Yeah. Okay. So I try and shoot available light wherever possible. This is available light, for example. And this was shot with a film crew, so there's a big old 4K continuous light source outside of that window, and it gives you glorious effects. This is this one was lit using ProPhoto lighting gear, mostly bounced off the ceiling with an emphasis on backlight, and I can't talk fast enough to keep up with this. So let's go to Portfolio, Lifestyle, and let's make some choices here. So this was all available light. I stood by the side of this splashing wave pool for 45 minutes, shooting over and over and over all the kids rising up and getting splashed by the water. This young gentleman made his way closer. I could tell he was a bit of a camera glory hound. And I availed myself of that. I shot him for a good 15 minutes, just him. And as soon as I had this shot, I knew I was done. And I asked my assistant to go ask his parents for a signed model release. So, you know, there's that production issue as well as lighting. You have to be able, be sure you're able to use the photo in the future once you take it and once you're proud of it. All right, so all of these, generally, this looks like it is lit with flash from the foreground, because otherwise their faces would be in shadow, like down here. So again, that's a ProPhoto Octabox, about a 4-foot Octabox that my assistant is carrying around, just slightly off camera. It looks like, judging from the reflection in his glasses, it looks like the light was about 4 feet off my right shoulder. And as far as directing these people, you know, I just let them have fun and kind of followed them around, got down nice and low. As far as using available light, and it's also true with flash, unlike the three-point lighting we're taught in school, I start with backlight, because that's where you get effects like this. Lens flare, rim light, the drama that you see in a lot of these photos starts with backlight. And once I know what the exposure is supposed to look like using backlight, there's the lens flare, the shape of the diaphragm inside the lens. Then you begin to fill the light to match that, but not overwhelm it. Does that answer your question?
It probably does.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
This, for example, is an on-camera flash. So there's no reason you have to get expensive equipment to do it.
Oh, how'd you get the sun rays to be so perfectly ballet-like?
Actually, what you do is you put them along a partially opaque object or line. And what happens as the light starts to bend around that object, you begin to reveal those rays. And what you do is you just bob up and down and bend your knees and move left and right until you see what you want. Because if you just put the sun up there, it would just sort of white out everything. If you put it behind Prentice's hat, you would get rays wrapping around his face. I chose to put them there.
Wow.
And when we were talking about that earlier,
yeah, photography is very athletic. Who knew?
Yeah, and it helps to not eat ice cream all the time. So you were amazed that there is a iPhone app that allows us to see exactly where the sun is going to be at any given time.
I think that's
the
awesome.
one I use is called Sunseeker, and you can see the arc of the sun and its position at any point. And before the sun went down, I, for example, took a picture. There's one feature in this. There's my backyard with the sun's position right after as it's approaching sunset. There's the horizon. So there are great tools for figuring out just where the sun is going to be when you take this picture. But, you know, you do it seat of pants too.
We have another question from Mary. Asks, how do you catch those spectacular moments in between the moments? And you talked a little about this, but you can elaborate some more.
Yeah, I think what Mary is fishing for me to do is on, let's see, where is a good example? When you're working with people and you've got lights set up all around them and you're posed, and for this one, for example, you know, I was working with the position of the droplet into the sampling tubes down at the bottom there, and you know, trying to make the light as Renaissance as possible. And the instructor, you know, is one of those moments where you see, if you know Renaissance painting, you know what the hands do, things that are simply impossible. They're just so elegant and perfectly tuned and all the rest. That's what I wanted. I wanted that Michelangelo moment right there. So you work that until you've overdone it. Then you call a fake wrap. Okay, we're done. Strike the set. And that's when you get moments like this.
Because they relax.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's real. And again, like I said to you at the very beginning of this evening, this long evening, thank you so much for staying, is I want photographs with this lived in look. Mary, does that answer your question?
I bet Mary's muted.
Mary's muted. Yeah, like what Mary was getting to.
Thank you very much. That was perfect.
Thank you, Mary.
We have another question I want to ask really quick because I'm sure it's probably on a lot of people's minds. I want to know how Scott pitches a pro bono project.
Well,
big question, but is it just a conversation or is it some kind of deck that you make, or how do you?
No, all you have to do is raise your hand. I want to help. Put me in, coach. I'm ready.
Oh, wow.
That's usually all it takes to do pro bono. You're working for free, so it's on your own time. But if I show them the work on my website and they say, heck yeah, bring that boy in, let's get busy. So that's not difficult. I thought what you were asking is what do you do to give the paying shoots, get the paying shoots?
I'm sure that's the follow-up question.
Well, you know, it pays to advertise. It's advertising is not an expense, it's an investment. And so I want to sing the praises of our friends at Workbook,
Thank you very much.
Mary, and the good folks at APA Chicago who put together the meeting with the reps. And again, this was the parenthetical around big shoots and big budgets. And what I did was just show those producers multi-day shoots with full crews for clients like Newland Communities, and showed them all these pictures saying, look, I can do this. The same is true with this shoot for Wells Fargo with BBDO San Francisco. Again, you know, they want these real moments, and this. And actually, Workbook also hosted on Saturday a portfolio show, a virtual portfolio show. I met with a creative director at GSD&M who I'd known for years as he went through other agencies. He hadn't seen this stuff. So I showed it to him, and this shot, he loved this shot. he said, are these people, are these professional models? And I said, no, they're amateur. And he says, you know, I can tell. They just look so good, so real. And
You can always tell. You can always tell real from.
Yeah. Yeah, professionals, I mean, it's a problem. They're always on. And so amateurs, it takes a little while to get them up to speed. But once you do, you get some moments like this. All right.
I want to say something. I love your work, and in particular, as an art director who's photo supervised a whole bunch of photos, I know that all of your work it's very beautiful and it's very glamorous, even if it doesn't look glamorous, you know. But I know out there with the cows and the dirt and the dust and the trucks and all of that, and the long days, because you want the early light and the late light, you know.
Late light.
I commend you on making it look effortless and beautiful.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Because I know it's way harder than it looks.
Yeah, and never see him sweat. Never let him see you sweat. Is that
exactly
the phrase? Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not all grit and cattle. I mean, occasionally I do get to photograph stuff like this, and you know, kids on the beach. But
they're like cows, aren't they?
my favorite shot out of the bunch is this.
Oh, look at
you
that!
know, how do you, again, amateur models, and they just forget you there. So I guess it comes down to outlasting them, doesn't it? All right. Anything else, Linda? We got to let these.
Well, I do. I always want to ask, like, what's the, if you could dream up like the next big job, a paying job, like what would be on your bucket list of like, wow, if only I could X, what would that be?
Yeah. You know, I asked you not to answer that question.
Sorry.
I don't have a good answer for you. What I do have, what I know is I just love doing this. I don't care if it pays a lot. I don't care if it's with a national brand. If it's interesting visually, if it's got interesting people in it like this, I want to shoot it. And I'm really excited about this little one-day shoot, one-day driving.
To the farmer in Louisiana. That is so cool.
That I'm doing next week in Louisiana. I'm just as excited about that as I was about flying to Florida to shoot for Costa del Mar. It doesn't matter. I love doing this stuff.
Thank you. That's a great answer. And I'm sorry, I forgot that I wasn't supposed to ask you that question, but it's always the one I want to know. Like, you know, what can I light the votive candle for you about tonight? Is it the Louisiana farmer? Is it, I don't know, no ice cream? Ice cream alternatives.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
I can't
you.
think of a more spectacular way to open the C3 program about passion and purpose. And I know that just, you know, when we were first talking about who should we have come talk to us, and some people said, I want to hear more from a fine artist. And other people said, no, I really want to hear from a commercial artist. And I said, what if you heard from the same human who was all those things? And you were like, absolutely in my mind, 100% when I made that suggestion. And I'm so glad you came to deliver.
Well, thank you so much for asking me. And Mary, thank you for helping Linda produce this. It's been a real pleasure.
Yes. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
Cindy said, your work is, you can see the passion and purpose in it. And it's
yes.
really amazing.
Absolutely.
George, boy genius.
There you go, man genius, Scott Van Osdol.
Thanks, boss.
Thank you.
Great having you here.
We'll have more people next month, and the month after that, all kinds of amazing humans, and some of you amazing humans will be involved. So come back.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Great meeting. Thank you so much.